Now there was a woman who had been married to a member of a group of prophets. She appealed to Elijah, saying, "My husband, your servant, is dead. You know how he feared the Lord. But now someone he owed money to has come to take my two children away as slaves." Elijah said to her, "What can I do for you? Tell me what you still have left in the house." She said, "Your servant has nothing at all in the house except a small jar of oil." He said, "Go out and borrow containers from all your neighbors. Get as many empty containers as possible. Then go in and close the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all those containers. Set each one aside when it's full." She left Elijah and closed the door behind her and her sons. They brought her containers as she kept on pouring. When she had filled the containers, she said to her son, "Bring me another container." He said to her, "There aren't any more." Then the oil stopped flowing, and she reported this to the man of God. He said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your son can live on what remains." One day Elijah went to Shunem. A rich woman lived there. She urged him to eat something, so whenever he passed by, he would stop in to eat some food. She said to her husband, "Look, I know that he's a holy man of God, and he passes by regularly. Let's make a small room of the roof. We'll set up a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp for him there. Then, when he comes to us, he can stay there." So one day Elijah came there, headed to the room on the roof, and lay down. He said to his servant Gehazi, "Call this Shunammite woman." Gehazi called her, and she stood before him. Elijah then said to Gehazi, "Say to her, 'Look, you've gone to all this trouble for us. What can I do for you? Is there anything I can say on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?" She said, "I am content to live at home with my own people." Elijah asked, "So what can be done for her?" Gehazi said, "Well, she doesn't have a son, and her husband is old." Elijah said, "Call her." So Gehazi called her, and she stood at the door. Elisha said, "About this time next year, you'll be holding a son in your arms." But she said, "No, man of God, sir, don't lie to your servant." But the woman conceived and gave birth to a son at about the same time the next year. This was what Elijah had promised her. The child grew up. One day he ran to his father, who was with the harvest workers. He said to his father, "Oh, my head, my head." The father said to a young man, "Carry him to his mother." So he picked up the boy and brought him to his mother. The boy sat on her lap until noon. Then he died. She went up and laid him down on the bed for the man of God. Then she went out and closed the door. She called her husband and said, "Send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys so that I can hurry to the man of God and come back." Her husband said, "Where are you going to him today? It's not a new moon or Sabbath." She said, "Don't worry about it." She saddled the donkey, then said to her young servant, "Drive the donkey hard. Don't let me slow down unless you tell me." So she went off and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. As soon as the man of God saw her from a distance, he said to Gehazi his servant, "Look, it's the Shunammite woman. Run out to meet her and ask her, 'Are things okay with you, with your husband, and your child?'" She said, "Things are okay." When she got up to the man of God at the mountain, she grabbed his feet. Gehazi came up to push her away, but the man of God said, "Leave her alone. She is distraught, but the Lord has hidden the reason from me and hasn't told me why." She said, "Did I ask you for a son, sir? Didn't I say, 'Don't raise my hopes'?" Elijah said to Gehazi, "Get ready, take my staff, and go. If you encounter anyone, don't stop to greet them. If anyone greets you, don't reply. Put my staff on the boy's face." But the boy's mother said, "I swear by your life and by the Lord's life, I won't leave you." So Elijah got up and followed her. Gehazi went on ahead of them. He set the staff on the young boy's face. There was no sound or response. So he went back to meet Elijah and told him, "The boy didn't wake up." Elijah came into the house and saw the boy lying dead on his bed. He went in and closed the door behind the two of them. Then he prayed to the Lord. He got up on the bed and lay down on top of the child, putting his mouth on the boy's mouth, his eyes on the boy's eyes, his hands on the boy's hands. And as he bent over him, the child's skin grew warm. Then Elijah got down and paced back and forth in the house. Once again he got up on the bed and bent over the boy, at which point the boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Elijah called him for Gehazi and said, "Call the Shunammite women." Gehazi called her, and she came to Elijah. He told her, "Pick up your son." She came and fell at his feet, face down on the ground. Then she picked up her son and left. When Elijah returned to Gilgal, there was a famine in the land. A group of prophets was sitting before him. He said to his servant, "Put on the big pot and cook some stew for the prophets." So one of them went out to the field to gather plants. He found a wild vine and gathered wild gourds from it, filling his garments. He came and cut them up into the pot of stew, but no one knew what they were. The stew was served to the men, but as they started to eat it, they cried out and said, "There is death in that pot, men of God." They couldn't eat it. Elijah said, "Get some flour." He threw it into the pot and said, "Serve the people so they can eat." At that point, there was nothing bad left in the pot. A man came from Baal Shalisha, bringing the man of God some bread from the early produce, 20 loaves of barley bread and fresh grain from his bag. Elijah said, "Give it to the people so they can eat." His servant said, "How can I feed 100 men with this?" Elijah said, "Give it to the people so they can eat. This is what the Lord says, eat and there will be leftovers." So the servants gave the food to them. They ate and had leftovers, in agreement with the Lord's word.